Traders, how are you? With Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. We got Trump winning the election. We have drought news in all of the U.S. And we have some economic news as well. Let's go ahead and get started. Overall for the week, this is obviously the second week after the election. I had some technical issues last week, so I couldn't upload the video. But there's a little bit of we had a bit of a boom, right, when the election results came out. And then now kind of everybody's getting used to what's going to happen and how things are going to go and all of that. On Wednesday, we had the consumer prices information come out. The inflation was at 2.6% from a year earlier. Now, one of the biggest piece of news when it comes to the inflation front is that Fed officials talked about how since we had strong retail sales being sales in stores, and then Fed Jerome Powell, the Fed chair of the central bank in the United States, said that solid economic growth would allow the central bank to take its time lowering rates, which implies that they may not do the drop in December. They might do it a little bit easier now. Now, that affects quite a bit in the economy due to the fact that in the United States, for example, which is still back-to-back World War champs, largest economy in the world, still, I don't know where I saw that, but I thought it was hilarious. The almost 70% of the economy in the United States is consumer spending. So consumer spending, obviously with the inflation and everything that we've had over the last few years, record credit card debt, everybody buys things on debt, mortgage, to take in interest rate, you go with your mortgage, car loan, interest rate, anything you buy pretty much most nowadays, I think most people buy it with a credit card as well. So with almost 70% of the economy being consumer spending, meaning you and I going out and spending money, and now the central bank saying that, well, may not lower rates as fast because we have good economic data, that sent a little bit of a sourpuss smell across the economy overall. Markets in the United States, all negative. The Communist Republic of Canada went up by 0.92%. And some of the, not conspiracy theory news, but some of the weather news that I share with you guys, nearly all of the U.S. states are facing droughts. So the only two states that don't have it yet are Kentucky and Alaska, but every other state is actually in a drought. It's more than 150 million people, 318 million acres of crops due to the record summer heat. So if you're able to get a little, water tank, just throw it in your backyard, connected to your roof gutters, probably recommend it. In Florida, for example, there was a few cities that were limiting the watering of lawns due to the fact that, there's just not enough water anymore. Overseas market news, the European markets were mostly mixed. Istanbul, which was the biggest winner, tongue twister there in Europe, if you consider Turkey, Europe. Latin America was mixed. Bovespa, which is the largest market in Latin America, went down by 0.02%. Africa and the Middle East was mixed. We got Saudi Arabia being the biggest loser there. And then in the far East, Asia and Australia, the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, which was the biggest loser over there in the Far East. Bitcoin and crypto on a tear the last few days, hit a record high 93,445, surpassed silver as the 8th largest asset in the world. Coinbase, which is the largest crypto brokerage in the U.S., went up by almost 20%. In addition to that, MicroStrategy, which is a company that has gone all in on Bitcoin. Michael Saylor, which is the CEO there, I believe, he's a big bull for crypto. They went up 25%. Last 5 days, they're up 50%. And overall for the week, Bitcoin settled down a little bit, settled at 90,643 on Saturday morning. So it's up about 18.53%. Commodities and energy, due to the dynamic that we had with the election, there's an expectation that, especially now with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy coming into the new Doge Department of Government Efficiency, there's going to be a big boom economically. That's kind of what people are expecting. So the dollar has reached not a record high, but a series of monthly highs to a lot of other currencies. So because of the dollar being so high, that has an inverse effect on a lot of the commodities that we have that are priced in dollars, like gold, silver, oil, etc. So oil for the week in the U.S. went down by 5%. 67.02 is where it settled at. International, which is Brent, went down almost 4% to 71.04. There's also the incoming policy decision of President Trump, which obviously is going to be open up the spigots to be able to go ahead and let the liquid gold flow, as he said. Crude oil prices fell on Monday to extending declines. There was an expectations of a Hurricane Raphael affecting a lot of the offshore rigs there around Texas. And Russian officials and business executives are talking about combining all of the major oil producing companies in Russia to combine one large company, which would rival the largest crude producer in the world, which is Aramco from Saudi Arabia, which is state-owned. Spain's Deoleo, which is the largest company that produces olive oil in the world, says one of the most challenging periods in the history of producing olive oil seems to be over. The prices have gone exponential at record highs due to the fact that they've had bad weather and also really bad situations with pests. But now their signs are improving, they're saying, for the 24-25 season, and better what do you call that in English? The cosecha. That's how you say in Spanish. When the fruit comes out, I forgot how you say that in English. Completely slipped my mind. But you guys know what I mean. When the fruit comes out, there's a word for it in English, but I just can't think of it right now. And the producing countries of Greece, Tunisia, and Spain are supposedly going to have, if you guys understand how I say it in Spanish now, good cosechas this year coming up. Gold is lower, went down 4.73% to $2,563.30. Silver is down 3.59% to $30.30 as well. Financial and banking news, goodbye to the middle class. Almost 50% of all workers in the United States are making less than $43,222 a year, which if you divide that over 12, that's what, $2,000 or $3,000 a month, maybe three. Let me do the math on that real quick. And it really doesn't get you anywhere, right? $3,600 a month. When most rents are $1,000, $1,500 a month, you really don't have a lot of extra money left over when it comes to food and everything else. Milei, the new libertarian president of Argentina, has dropped poverty in the country from 57% to 46%. The monthly inflation in Argentina dropped to 2.7%, lowest level in 3 years. Can you imagine? We're at 4, 5, 6, 7% a year in the U.S., and they were at 10, 20, 30% a month. Mm-hmm. Euro dropped, and if you guys didn't know, Argentina, richest country in the world in 1900, started voting for socialists, 70 years, destroyed the country. The euro dropped to its lowest level against the U.S. dollar in 6.5 months. Investors are worried about the U.S. tariffs that might hurt the European economy. Remember that one of the things that Trump talked about as well was introducing tariffs and actually removing the U.S. tax code, removing the income tax and paying that with the tariffs. So we'll see how that works out. Inflation in Germany rose 2.4% in October. The inflation in the UK fell sharply 1.7% in September, much lower than what the target rate is for the UK. They cut rates by 25 basis points on the 7th of November. They're at 4.75. And the yen, which is from Japan, the fourth largest economy in the world, fell below 156 per dollar, which is the weakest in nearly 4 months. So it looks like it's going to be time to travel because the dollar is going up. And the U.S. index, which is kind of like a gauge between the dollar and every other major currency around the world, hit its highest in a year. So it looks like there's a lot of optimism about what the U.S. economy is going to do overall based on the way that the direction that the dollar is heading. In economic news, the private jobs declined for the first time since the pandemic. The only thing growing right now is government jobs. Hopefully, Elon Musk and Vivek will take care of that. In October, U.S. retail sales data came in at a 0.4% increase, slightly better than the expected 0.3% from economists. Political news, as I mentioned, Trump did win the White House. He also won the Senate and the House of Representatives. A few interesting things happened after he won the election. Hamas, which is the terrorist group that's in the Middle East fighting Israel, They called for an immediate end to the war after he won the election. Trump also accepted Putin's calls to be able to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. And Qatar notified Hamas that their officials are no longer welcome in the country either. So it looks like the world is starting to head in a different direction. The corporate news, Tesla stock rose almost 9% on Monday at $350. Last week's 29% gain. If I have the numbers right, I think Elon Musk invested $100 million into Donald Trump's campaign. With the increase in the stock, he's up $30 billion in wealth. So it looks like it was a good investment. The shares hit a fresh 52-week high. Spotify, their stocks went up over 11% after exceeding analysts' expectations. Their monthly users are up 11%, 640 million users a month. Spirit Airlines collapsed 59% after it was reported that they're going to enter into bankruptcy after the failed combination merger with Frontier Airlines. They're down over 50% in the past 3 months. And Singapore Airlines, which is kind of one of the emblematic airlines around the world, one of the poopiest, their shares falls as well as they reported 50% less net profit. They cited lower yields, growing competition, in addition to higher fuel costs. And in advance of what's happening in regards to the consumer spending in the United States, Advance Auto Parts is cutting its outlook and closing 700 stores. They have about 5,000 stores around the country, and it's in one of the latest stores to announce closures and layoffs and things of the like. 7-Eleven, the major retail chain, and gas, most times you go to a 7-Eleven to get your gas. They're about to go private in a $58 billion deal, not finalized just yet, but they approved it by the board, so we'll look what happens with that. And in investment news, Elon Musk's AI company xAI is looking to raise $6 billion at a valuation of $50 billion. They're expecting $5 billion in sovereign wealth fund money from the Middle East and $1 billion in investors. And the money's going to be used to acquire over 100,000 NVIDIA chips, which will likely have a measurable impact on the improvements of Tesla's self-driving, which is interesting. I don't know if you guys saw the new, what did he call it? The RoboCab. And the robotics coming out of Tesla is really impressive. International events, Ukraine attacked Russia in the capital of Moscow on Sunday night. They had to divert planes from 3 airports. 5 people died. So it looks like that may not die down very quickly. And the Latin America poverty levels have gone down to a 33-year low in 2023, led by Brazil. There's about 170 million people in the region affected by poverty, mostly in Haiti, Nicaragua, and Honduras. And some things are here in Colombia. Things are great. Don't have to pay $100 to go out to eat. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. And remember, the preppers were right.